Hello everyone, this is David from Automotive Press. As you know, I love talking about SUVs and 4x4s, especially when it comes to future products. And I particularly like talking about 2024 4Runner, which is expected to be all new with radical new design. But what I want to do today is something very interesting, which is to speculate whether Toyota will indeed make the 4Runners truly competitive with something like a Ford Bronco, which is what I have behind me. Would Toyota actually make the next generation 4Runner a true off-roader in the likes of Ford Bronco or Jeep Wrangler? Let's get right into it. Welcome back. So the very interesting thing to speculate is how far would Toyota go in making the 4Runner as good or as competitive as a Bronco or something like a Jeep Wrangler, because these guys are a true off-roader, hardcore at its best, and these things can go anywhere. But would Toyota actually go that far in making the next generation 4Runner a true 4x4, a true off-road capable vehicle? That's the big question. So let me do a walk around of the current Bronco with the current 4Runner that I own, which is a limited, and let me see if we can together figure out what would Toyota would do for the 2024 4Runner. Now, my belief is that one of the reasons why Toyota has been delaying the introduction of 4Runner is that perhaps they're trying to make some cosmetic changes or some other changes to make the new generation 4Runner a bit closer to something like a Ford Bronco, because these things are selling so well. And the latest report showed that the Bronco actually did not steal sales away from the Jeep Wrangler, but in fact it added and expanded that particular market. So Jeep Wrangler has roughly 8 or 9% of the market share, and then the Bronco was going to then steal that market share away, but it turned out the Bronco also has 7 to 8% market share. So together now they have 15 to 16% of the market share, which is actually quite big. So I think what Toyota will try to do is to bring the 4Runner closer to this type of vehicle, but not lose its loyal buyers, because most of the 4Runner buyers are obviously daily users who aren't taking these things off-road, but they want to be seeing in an off-road capable vehicle, which is why something like a Limited sells so well. But in terms of the exterior, we know that the FJ Cruiser uses the round headlight, much like in the Bronco, and of course the Jeep Wrangler also uses round headlight. I do suspect though that at least for the next generation 4Runner, I don't think they'll move to a round headlights, although that is a possibility. I think they'll stick with more of a Tacoma or the current Tundra look and feel, and then keep the traditional big Toyota grille in the front. Who knows, maybe they will offer a really capable bumper system like this one. This is an off-road catered steel bumper as part of the Sasquatch package, which also includes a big 35-inch wheels and tires. I think it's very possible that Toyota will offer bigger wheels and tire package, much like in Wrangler and Bronco, to put on the 4Runner. But I doubt very much they'll do hardcore things like offering a steel bumpers. What about these kind of stuff? Well, this is to put some wires from here to the roof so that when you are actually driving through big forest or areas with lots of branches, the tree branches will get pushed away from the car bodies so that it doesn't scratch the body. Would they put that on the 4Runner? I doubt that too, because once again, that's a bit too much of an off-road accessory. But who knows, they might add something like that as an aftermarket option, once again to make the 4Runner look more off-road capable. To finish off the front end, I suspect that they might offer a different grille design based on which version of the 4Runner you buy. So right now we have SR5, and then we have the TRD Off-Road, TRD Sport, which is new, and as well as Limited, and then we have the TRD Pro, which is at the top of the flagship. Perhaps the TRD Pro will have more aggressive design, a little bit like the Bronco here, because this one even has a license plate integrated above the bumper so that this bumper can take the full impact of hardcore off-roading. So those are some interesting things. This is pretty flat in the front. The 4Runner right now has a kind of a rounder design. I think it might move toward more of this design so that it's a bit more in your face, and it does make 4Runner look more like a Jeep design. So once again, I don't think they will go all the way to the design of the Bronco or the Wrangler, because so many of the 4Runner buyers are not really going to go off-roading. But they also know that that market is expanding and people love that design, and perhaps even Toyota is taken back by the surprise strong sales of the Ford Bronco. And that could be one of the reasons why Toyota is delaying the introduction of the new 4Runner, so they can make some tweaks to the design, again, to make it look more like a Bronco or Wrangler. The rest of the body here is quite different in terms of the actual body style, because the 4Runner is more like a traditional SUV with a body on the frame design, of course, compared to Bronco, which has more of the muscular off-road look, and it's also very tall, very blocky, very chunky, and perhaps Toyota will make the next 4Runner a bit more chunky and rectangular looking, so that once again it has that real outdoor design. In terms of wheels, right now we don't get any kind of large wheels offered. In the Sasquatch package, in the Bronco, we get the 35s. That is something that can easily be offered by Toyota without making a lot of engineering changes. So that's something very easy to do. Also, when it comes to fender blisters, the Bronco has these very big protective wheel wells. This is a big plastic one. We don't have anything like that on the 4Runner, even in the TRD Pro. Definitely, I think the next generation 4Runner, especially in the TRD Pro format, will likely have something like this, maybe not quite this big, but something that sticks out a little bit more to give it a protection in terms of off-roading, but also give it that hardcore look from this plastic design over the wheel wells. I do like this design of the wheels on the Bronco, very aggressive. It's got a huge Goodyear off-road tires. On the limited 4Runner that I have, this is a normal road tire, street tires, but they should offer something more aggressive in the TRD Pro. Again, approaching something like the Bronco. Let's keep on moving along the side here. We got a big mirror that sticks out. Good design here. We don't have a snorkel in this particular Bronco, and we don't have a snorkel in the 4Runner as well as an option. Some people do add it afterwards, but that's a pretty rare occurring. And then in 2019, Toyota did offer the snorkel in the Tacoma, but that was the only year they offered because it wasn't popular. People didn't like it, because even for Tacoma, the buyers tend to be everyday street users as opposed to those people who actually want to go off-roading. Now keep on going here. You can tell that this once again have a very angular design, lots of creases, flat panels to give it a bit of a Land Rover Defender look versus more of a round design. So I do suspect that Toyota will likely make the panels a little bit more vertical and straight, like in the Bronco and Wrangler. Not much you can do about the door handles, although these are plastic injection molded black one versus chrome in my Limited. So that's easy to change, and I expect them to have a blacked out door handles as well. Now, the big question, of course, is would Toyota actually put a removable roof, like in the Bronco, in the next generation 4Runner? That is a very good question. My suspicion is that they will not go that far, because it's a huge engineering change, and also it's a huge engineering challenge to make the roof structurally rigid and structurally sound, but still be able to remove the panels. That would be an amazing, amazing accomplishment if Toyota decided to engineer something like this, where all the panels can come off and maybe even the doors can come off. I suspect that they won't do that, but we'll have to wait and see. Once again, even the back here, all this comes off in the Bronco and also in the Wrangler. Something that's really unique to this market, and while I would love to see Toyota do something like that, once again, that's probably unlikely. Now let's go to the back here and think through what Toyota might do. Now the Bronco and the Wrangler have these big spare tires in the back, a really signature type of design for something like this. Would Toyota ever do that? I doubt that, because again, too many buyers are looking for convenience and practicality. Having a big spare tires will compromise too many things, and so I doubt they would do that. But what about this controversial discussion about the rear window? As you know, I did a video recently about the fact that next generation 4Runner will likely lose this rolling rear window, and people were very upset about that. Now, it's only my speculation, so who knows, they might keep it. But if you look at the competitors, they don't have it either. The Wrangler, the Bronco, these actually flip up, but they do not roll down as well. So if Toyota is actually taking inspirations from competitors who are doing well, they'll say, well, competitors don't have it. Why do we need to keep on designing with a roll down rear window? Because it's expensive, it's awkward, and perhaps it's not as safe as you think, because there's potential for exhaust to go back into the cabin if you drive with this rear window down. Even if you open the front windows, the carbon monoxide will still into the cabin, and it's never a good thing for car companies to have that kind of liability. Now, if you look at the tail lamp design, as you know, the 4Runner has this kind of blocky, chunky tail lamp, which is a little bit like the Bronco, is even smaller here. But in my rendering of the 2024 4Runner, I was saying that perhaps it could be a horizontal tail lamp following the design of something like a Highlander. Once again, people are saying that is not a good trend. The 4Runner needs to keep a blocky design. But, you know, if you look at Land Cruiser, Lexus LX, they all have the horizontal design. So I think that's what's going to happen. Now, in the back here, we have a pretty heavy-duty bumper again in the Bronco, a regular bumper in the 4Runner. Don't expect Toyota to offer a steel bumper in the back either. And what about the opening of the tailgate? Well, this opens this way, and once you open the tailgate, you can then flip open the window as well. So this is sort of a, again, Jeep Wrangler Bronco style, which people like a lot for off-roading because it's easy to access. This is wide open, but it's very different from the current 4Runner, which opens the normal way. So this is just opens like a normal SUV or crossover. So I doubt very much they would change that tail lamp look like this, because once again, this is very much a Bronco Wrangler style, and I don't think Toyota will go this far in terms of the engineering or design changes. Now, what about the important discussion around the engine choices? Well, the Ford Bronco has two choices, a standard 4-cylinder engine or twin-turbo V6 called the EcoBoost. This one has the optional 2.7 EcoBoost, which has plenty of power and torque. In fact, it performs so well that I actually really love the engine in the Ford Bronco. The current 4Runner has a 4-liter non-turbocharged V6 engine, which has been around forever in the 4Runner, very proven, extremely reliable, but super underpowered. So definitely the new 4Runner has to have a new powertrain to compete with something like this. Now, the rumors has it that they will move to a 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that is currently in the Lexus NX and also in the new 2023 Toyota Highlander. So I'm pretty sure, in terms of my speculation anyway, that the 4Runner will move to a 2.4-liter turbocharged engine. But the big question is, would they, just like a Bronco or Wrangler, offer multiple choices? And the simple answer is probably yes, because they will likely offer a hybrid version of the 2.4-liter turbocharged engine. So the base model could be the 2.4 turbo, and the optional engine could be the 2.4 turbo with hybrid. But in addition, there are some rumors floating around that Toyota might offer a V6 engine after all, simply because the competitors are all keeping the V6 engine. Well, the Tundra didn't keep the V8 engine, even though the competitors kept the V8. So I doubt very much that will happen. But if it does happen, this same engine, the 4-liter V6, could be kept because this engine is actually still available in other SUV, such as the new Land Cruiser 300 series. They are actually offering that 4-liter engine in that vehicle as well. But again, there's nothing like a competition that could change the mind of Toyota executive in much the same way they decided to stick in a 5-liter V8 engine in the Lexus IS last minute. So you never know. So my wish and my hope is that they will offer the 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder with and without hybrid, and perhaps offer a V6 engine for the die-hard traditionalists who still want to have that engine in the 4Runner. So that kind of summarizes my thoughts on the powertrain. Let's keep on talking about the 2024 4Runner against the Ford Bronco. So now I'm inside the Ford Bronco, which, by the way, it's an amazing place to spend time because you can remove the roof. I just took the driver's side right now, but of course the passenger side can come off, more panels can come off. In fact, the whole thing can be removed, and even the doors can be removed. I think the Ford Bronco is a benchmark right now in terms of these hardcore 4x4 market, because the Bronco is definitely better than the Wrangler. It has more updated design, good features, and really great performance. So what about the 2024 4Runner? How would they mimic something like this? Well, I think in terms of having these color accents and rubberized grips and so forth, that's something we can expect in the 4Runner, because that's the trend. Many of the SUVs, even like a RAV4, are beginning to show this accented design, so that would be something we can expect. But the design is pretty straightforward in the Bronco. Big infotainment system in the center, a digital cluster in the driver's side, and then a very blocky design here also. And a lot of the switches are on the center console, not on the doors, because in the Bronco and also in the Wrangler, you can actually remove the door. I really doubt that Toyota will offer that in the 4Runner. If they do, that'll be a big surprise. So I expect things like window switches and other controls to remain on the door for the 4Runner because they don't have to have the doors removed. But infotainment system should be very similar to something like this because right now the biggest infotainment system in the Toyota is a 14-inch version, which is the one that they have in the Lexus NX and also in my new Toyota Tundra. It's a very well designed system, easy to use, very quick, and I expect that to carry over to the new 4Runner as well. Now the Bronco and also the Wrangler have kept all of these traditional buttons and switches, which I really appreciate because when you're going off-roading, you don't want to fiddle with controls inside the infotainment system. And I think Toyota will keep a similar design theme for the new 4Runner by making sure that we have access to buttons, switches, and so forth. Thankfully, the new Tundra, the new Lexus LX, and Land Cruiser all kept the buttons and switches, so we don't have to worry about losing those because that would be a truly terrible thing to do if they removed all these things and go to a more of a Tesla style design with everything inside the infotainment system. This one has a big, blocky, chunky shifter. We also have something similar on the 4Runner. So yeah, expect something similar to this. The Bronco has a very interesting variations of the drivetrain. You can have two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive like normal, but you can also have the option of all-wheel drive or full-time four-wheel drive, which we do have in the current 4Runner because my Limited has all-wheel drive. So I think they will definitely keep that at least for some version of the 4Runner, and maybe even for the TRD Off-Road or TRD Pro, they could potentially add automatic four-wheel drive on those models. That would be a nice gesture because both Wrangler and Bronco offer that as well. Aside from that, you also get different driving mode. That's something that we would definitely expect in the new version of the Toyota 4Runner. And those modes could include, off-roading, sand, mud, winter driving, that kind of stuff. And perhaps the higher grade version will have more modes and the lower grades will have less mode. I do fully expect to have all of the off-roading capable features like MTS and crawl control on at least some versions of the 4Runner, so that's all going to stay. But would the new 4Runner also move the switches to more of this style with rubberized buttons for drivetrain controls and lots of overhead buttons? Some of these are dummy buttons in which you can add accessory later on like auxiliary buttons. So this is really cool. And that'll be really interesting if Toyota could add something like this because that would be a cool thing to do. Because right now the current version of the 4Runner is okay in terms of interior, but it's pretty boring and it's very outdated, so they have to make a lot of changes. Other than that, I expect the full suite of safety features in the 4Runner, which is probably going to be the Toyota 3.0 with adaptive cruise control and perhaps even hands-free autonomous driving to some degree. So those are things we can expect. My final comment is about the driving. Now there is a big difference in terms of driving the Bronco and the current 4Runner because my 4Runner is smooth, refined, drives a lot like a normal SUV, and in many ways is smoother than some crossovers I've driven. But this one, especially with the Sasquatch package with the 35-inch off-road tires, are quite rough in terms of the driving character. It is definitely fun because you get the real off-road feel, but very bumpy and pretty rough over all kinds of terrains. So it's not the most comfortable truck to drive, and therefore for the passenger, especially in the back, they might find it a little bit of an uncomfortable ride, especially for long drives. So this is a very important decision point because Toyota have to decide if they're going to cater to the true hardcore off-roaders or cater more to the current buyers of the 4Runner who are basically using it as an everyday crossover type driving. And I suspect because 150,000 units were sold last year, most of them were normal everyday drivers, I doubt very much they're going to make the next generation 4Runner too bumpy or too rough by compromising the ride. I think they will keep it closer to the feel of the current 4Runner because even my new 2022 Toyota Tundra has a very smooth and refined ride. So in terms of driving feel, I think the new generation 4Runner will ride more like a normal SUV, smooth, refined, comfortable, quiet, and less like a Bronco or Wrangler, which has this kind of very chunky feel, very off-roading feel. Now the one unfortunate change likely to happen is that the 4Runner will move to electric power steering or EPS versus the hydraulic steering, which it has now, because basically all new models have electric power steering, simply because hydraulic power steering cannot accommodate some of the new technologies and also it eats up a little bit more gas. Surprisingly, there's about 2 to 3% fuel efficiency impact when you change from hydraulic to EPS or electric steering. So I expect that to change. And so we will lose some of that real good road feel that we have right now in the 4Runner, because even in this Bronco, while the steering feels okay, it's not the same as a 4Runner, once again because of the fact that we're comparing hydraulic steering to EPS. Aside from those things I commented, what else would Toyota change? I would love to hear from you what you think will happen to 2024 4Runner, especially in this interesting world where more and more people are moving toward something like a Bronco or Wrangler. Please make a comment below and let me know some of your thoughts. If you're able to give me a thumbs up and subscribe, that would be truly appreciated. But until next time, I'm signing off. Thank you so much.